Hello and welcome. Today we want to answer this question where we are supposed to bring out the supplier name using the supplier code. So we have been given the supplier code and we are asked to show the supplier name. So our table that we have been given with the supplier code and supplier name is this one. So we have column A showing our supplier name and column B with our supplier code. So we just want to make sure that when we are given the supplier code, we display the supplier name. Okay. So when we are looking at this table, we know that when we are dealing with our lookup functions, we want to look for the supplier name using the supplier code. So this is a lookup function, right? So because we know that you have to look at the table array first, so that you know which lookup function is best for the scenario you are given. We can see that we have supplier code and supplier name, and we have been given the supplier code to bring out supplier name. This table is actually vertically aligned, it's going down, right? So we would want to say, okay, a VLOOKUP, would I use the VLOOKUP because the data is actually going down, the data is vertically aligned, right? I cannot use my HLOOKUP here. Definitely my HLOOKUP will not work, so maybe my VLOOKUP, okay. But the rules for VLOOKUP are, number one, the data has to be vertically aligned, so it has to be going down, right? And yes, our data is going down. And rule number two, whatever I'm going to be using, right, as my lookup value has to be to the left of whatever I want to display as my output. So now we have, in our question, we are given the supplier code. So what I have is the supplier code. I want to bring the supplier name. So with my table that I'm given, my supplier code is in column B and my supplier name is column A. So I have to look for SU. When I look for SU, I then want to bring whatever is in column A. Now the rule for VLOOKUP is it cannot look back. If whatever you are looking for is in the front of whatever you want to bring out as output, VLOOKUP will not work. So if this supplier name was in column C, yes, it was going to work because I will say SU display supra, which is in the front of the lookup value, right? So because this is the column that holds my lookup values that are going to be chosen by the user of this Excel, I cannot use my VLOOKUP because whatever the person is going to enter, whatever has to be displayed as output is in column A, which is at the back of whatever is being used as the code, right? So here we can now say, yes, the data is vertical aligned, but I cannot use VLOOKUP. So which one should I use? Okay, I can choose to use index match function, right? Because we know with index match function is just going to say, okay, supplier name, right? Which one is my rows? These are the rows going down, right? So these are the rows going down, and I'm going to use my supplier code. I can use my supplier code as my rows going down because they're increasingly going down, right? And I have to have columns. So for this one, if this is going to be my table, this is the table that I'm using. So these are the rows, and I will have to choose my columns, right? But for this one, we can see that we only want values that are in this line, which is column one, right? So it's going to be, can you find the row? Index this table, right? So look at this table, right? Find the row that has the lookup value, and then give me the answer which is in column one, right? So for us to find the row that will be needed at that point, that's when we will call in the match function, okay? So this is why we are going to be using index match function for this question instead of using VLOOKUP, okay? So now we can now go here in our supplier name and say index equals index. Then the helper is going to come, and the area that is in bold, that's where we start to put information. So the first is saying, give me the array, right? The table array. So I go to my suppliers and highlight the table. You highlight the area that has the information, right? This is the area that has our information, right? Now, after that, I'm going to say, okay, now that I have my array, immediately after the word array, there is a comma there. So I put my comma, then row number, right? The rows now, if you know the row number, you put the row number. But right now, we know we don't know the row number, right? So because we don't know the row number, but we know these are the rows that are going to be selected from B2 to B11, right? The user is going to select any of these, and we want it to display the supplier name. So this going down, the rows, the column that has the values going down will make the rows for you. So our index is always index row column, right? But our helper is always going to help us or take us through so that you don't confuse the row and column. The row comes first, then the column, right? So now we are now going to say we don't know, so we call in the match function. So if you don't know that which value is going to be selected, now we call in the function, the match function. So the match function will now say, give me the lookup value. Which value are you looking for, right? That's number one. So you are going to say, I'm looking for this one, right? I'm looking for this one, which is A2 here, comma. That's what I'm looking for. And then lookup array. Lookup array is the list where we find this lookup value, right? To extract it, right? And get the answer. So you are going to say, this is the list where you find. So you highlight the area that has the data. To say, in this list, you will find AV in here, right? In this list, you will find AV in here, comma. We always use the exact match, right? It's always it, unless if the question tells you otherwise, that's when you can use your -1 or +1, right? They also follow the different rules, but we want to use the exact match, right? I want an exact match, that's why we put 0 there, okay? So when I select my 0 there, this is my row. This is going to represent my row. This whole match function from match this data that I've been given, look for it in this area, right? And give me an exact match. That's my row. When I'm done with the row, I put my comma, right? After putting my comma, now I'm going to say column now. The index is now saying, can you tell me the column, right? So if you don't know the column again, you write in match function, right? You match and the value that you've been asked as the lookup value for the column, you use that one. But for this instance now, these are the two columns that we have, A and B, of which this one is the rows, right? And the value that I want is in this first column, right? And my table array is just this part. So the first column here, this is now becoming the column that I want to bring out as the column that holds the answer, the column that is holding the supplier name, right? So 1, 2. So this is column 1. This will be 2. I want data in this one, right? This column 1. So I'm going to put 1 there because I want you to match a row and a value in column 1, a row and a value in column 1. So it's always going to be column 1. My answers, all my answers are in this same column. So this is column 1. That's why I'm putting column 1 there. However, when we are writing our functions, we should remember that when we select our array area, right, or table array area, we should always lock our data, right? So that whenever we are going to autofill our values, we don't want them to change. If you don't lock those areas, you will find that when you autofill, your values can actually what? Can actually change. So for you to avoid that, you should make sure that your area for your table array, whether you're using your VLOOKUP, whether you're using your index match, the area that has a list or a range that you don't want to move, you have selected it and it's constant, it's not going to be changing. We want to make sure that we do what? We log. So this becomes the function that is going to bring me the answer, right? So as you can see now, the answer is Avant. And when we look to our suppliers, it's going to say, okay, this is the table. Can you look for an this is the table, that's the index, right? The match function is going to say which row from this, can you look for AV in this list? So in this list, look for AV. In this list, it finds it there. When it finds it there, it's going to say, okay, which position, because the match function is going to give us the index position where it is. And then it matches with the value that is in front. We said column 1. So it's going to go and say where AV, where the number that has been extracted with the match function, where it meets with this column number 1, and it gives us Avant. Okay, so when then we autofill, now to stretch down, we are going to say if we click on DU, it should give us Ducal. Okay, so we are going to say DU, and we can see yes, DU will give us Ducal. Okay, so this is how we are using the index match on this question. Okay, so it's bye for now.